nice.
He is the one who took this picture.
Oh.
So do you guys have, if you don't have masking tape and something to tape it down to, it's okay, but it's easier if you do have that. The taping it down just helps it stay flat when you're painting. Because when we do the sky, we'll do it wet on wet. So we're gonna wet the whole sky with water first and then paint it. And if you have like your phone or your iPad or something, you can, like I'm doing, I'm gonna look at this picture as I paint.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's why I put it right
So
here.
have the picture ready to go also. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is, so also have some paper towels handy if you don't have any, or tissues or something, just in case you need to blot up like a cloud or something. So we could either put masking fluid on it or paint around it.
I probably don't even need a plate.
You know what you could do is, you know what I think I'll do? Cut out a little piece of masking tape.
That's a good idea.
So I'm gonna draw this circle on my masking tape.
Gotta make a tape.
Okay, so around whatever size it is, and then I'll cut it out and stick it on there. And then when we do the sky, we won't have to worry about painting around it, and it'll save.
Sam, will Scotch tape work or will it ruin the paper?
Scotch tape would probably ruin the paper.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we're just we're cutting out a little circle
Yeah, for the moon.
for the moon. And it's easier than waiting around for masking fluid to dry. Okay, so first we make our puddles. So we want a puddle of whatever blue we're using, and I use either cerulean blue or phthalo blue for the sky, for the top, and then it'll slowly blend down into like a pink. So make a puddle of pink.
No, that's why you take
You can tilt it sideways to see if it's all the way wet, because you can see it glistening if you missed any spots. You don't want it to be too wet. You just want it to be shiny. You could either use a big pointy brush to put it on, or a flat brush if you have a flat brush. So I'm just going to start at the top with the blue and a nice, you know, not too much, but a good amount.
Sam?
This is phthalo blue.
Okay.
And then I'm going to take, I just put my brush in the water, and then I'm just going to drag the color down, and I put my brush in the water again, and I'm just going to go back down again with just clean water to the bottom. It'll all, even if it's streaky now, it will be smooth at the end. And don't go over it too many times like I just did, but I always say don't do something while I'm doing it. And then just take a little bit of your pink with a lot of water in it and just go across the bottom. And you'll have a little pink glow. And then you can move it around. Put a little bit more. That. If you see it, if you have a puddle or like a valley and a hill, if your paper's starting to warp, you can lift it up and let it move. And this way it'll all blend smoothly together. So once you put the paint down, try not to touch it anymore. Just leave it alone and lift it up like this to make it go where you want it to go. So you can go sideways and this, you could just do this for a little while until it starts to really dry. Let's do the little birds, and then because we're gonna have to paint around them anyway when we paint the sand and the water here. So we might as well paint them.
Oh,
So
did you
with
already take your moon tape off?
No, don't take your moon tape off until the sky is totally dry. So just a brown and a black really is all you need for this. We're gonna do the birds next, and we're just waiting for this to dry. So
I'm doing this one like all brown, and then maybe.
you didn't miss anything. You can use either Soda Light Genuine or neutral tint for that dark, for the darks, or you can make a black with red and green. Makes black.
Oh,
But you
okay.
don't, but you would want to make sure it has no green in it when you look at the black. It'll be, put enough red so that it's not green anymore. It turns
Okay,
really
so I'm
black.
probably better off just using Soda Light then.
Yeah, Soda Light is good because it has like almost a bluish tint to it.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
good. Just try to like look at it and okay, so he's dark on the back of his neck, and the back of his back here is darker. So just try to look at the picture and do the dark colors where they are. And you can just do them all at once, and it's okay if it all blends together, because it's a small part of the painting. So tiny.
Mhm.
And it looks like the underneath of him is white. So you can just leave to do white. You just don't use white paint. You just clean your brush and use water only. So for the bottom of him. And then he has cute little legs. So when it's all done, let me zoom in. I'm just gonna add a little bit of black or dark color. You could use like whatever kind of dark color you have, if it's a dark purple or
Experience.
And I'll just add it to the top while it's still wet. So after I darkened him up a little more, I can take a dry, thirsty brush and lift off on the bottom of his belly. And the paint tries to go back in, but this is kind of just, I'm lifting and then rubbing it on the towel and then lifting it off and drying it off. So I'm taking the paint off the paper and then cleaning it off my brush as well. So I'm going like this on the towel next to it to get the paint off each time. So I lift it off and I wipe it off. So there you have a little bird with a slightly whiter bottom half of him. And then for the other guy, he just has a couple, like he has a black beak.
So other guy has like more
A little
straight.
black eyeball and a little black top of his wing.
Shoulder.
His shoulder, yep, and the back of his tail and his legs. So cute. So I just put in his little dark spots first, and then I can take some brown and put in the brown colors on his wing. Oops. And
I'm leaving it.
and that's pretty much him. And when we paint the sand, the rest of him will show up because it'll be white.
Mhm.
I guess we could do the wave because the wave's not touching anything. Like if we tried to do this background sky, this background ocean, the sky might still be wet and we want to wait till that's completely dry. If we try to do this part of the water coming in, this bird might be still wet. If we try to do the sand, this bird might still wet. So the only thing it's not touching is the wave. So let's do that. All right, so do you have your your turquoise. I have like a greenish turquoise and a bluish turquoise made because I don't know really. I'm going to start with the darker side, and maybe I won't be as dark as it's going to be in the end, but that's how you just judge as a guide. But you could see the wave, the biggest wave crashes right there, and then there's a little bit of light white color that goes up kind of diagonally. So I'm just going to put in the turquoise color here. Here, I'll come in a little closer. So I go up to this first wave right there, but there's just a slight bit of light whitish wave foamy stuff happening on the corner here. So I just want to leave some white little sparkles like that going up.
Okay.
That kind of looks like it. And then you can switch to your blue of your sky sometimes too. You don't have to only use turquoise. So you can put like a little stripe of blue somewhere if you want, just to have the colors change a little bit. And then you can see the wave stops, and then it's almost like a shadow. This blue part in front is kind of like a shadow or a reflection, I mean, of the wave. So I'm just going to add that too, but not going into the rest of the water yet. So let me just put a little bit of that in there. All right, so now, all right, then you can do the top, this little top spot where the wave comes over. And the top of this wave is smooth and the bottom of it is bumpy because it's the foam. So you just make a few little bumps like that. See how that looks?
Mhm.
And you're just leaving this white empty here because that's going to be painted when we do the background of it. It's also doing it a little bit over here. So you're going to leave that empty and then paint a little bit of this, the top of it right there. And then it has a little more of a splash. So I'm just going to leave a little bit, but then you can go straight across. So you go straight across the wave with with your teal color. And then as you can see, it gets lighter. Let me go back up here. It gets lighter as it rolls over. So I'm taking just plain water on my brush and going down the wave like this with just water. And then I'm going to clean off the water again and get more just plain water. And I'm dragging this wave color down. And you always want to paint in the direction that your object is going. So I'm going up and down with this wave because I want it to roll over. And then I can add a little bit of color back in to some spots that look like a little bit of color. There's a little bit more color in some areas, but not too much. And then you just have to know when to stop. So I'm about at the point where I better stop, I think. But I want to just make sure my tops of the splash foamy spots are actually looking like that. So I'm just like touching them with little dots going into the white area with some light color. So it looks like it's really splashing. Okay, so for the inside of the foam area, you're just going to use really watered down color of what we just did and just put in, like you can see on the drawing, there's some spots where they're drawn out. So you're just going to put in the really light, little splashy, not too much because you want to leave a lot of white. And I just put this paint down and then I cleaned my brush and I have now just plain, well, even my plain water has a little bit of color still in it. So I'm just using that, and it's the lightest color possible. And it's because you can always go darker, but it's hard to get the lighter color back again. So I start out usually just really lightly.
Awesome, guys. Thanks.
And then I see over here on the left side, when it's hitting the water, there's a little bit of a reflection because I guess it's darker over there. So I can put that in, and it's the same color kind of. So it goes pretty much straight across, and then it's just showing the bottoms of the wave. It's like a straight across, and then it stops around there. It doesn't go all the way. And it, I guess it picks up a little bit really skinny, and then it picks up a little bit right here. And this is like the underneath shadow part. I guess we could keep going and do this band of water that's coming towards us. So it's really a light sky blue that's maybe a little more purpley than the actual sky. So if you have a purple on your palette, you can use that or make one with red and blue. So I think I'm just going to touch a little bit of purple underneath this wave here. I just touched a tiny bit. I don't know if you can really see. And it kind of just blends in with that turquoise color. And then I'm going to use the sky blue color, and I have a light bit of paint on my brush. Not a lot of paint, but I'm just going to go back and forth across, leaving some light spots. And I have to paint around this little bird. So you want to try to put the same, whatever you have happening on one side of him, try to make the same thing happen on the other side of him. So if you have like a little white area, continue that across him. It's really just one bright blue color that goes across with a little bit of highlights. And the highlights, there is one little wave thing happening over here that's kind of cool to leave. So leaving some light spots, like I think I have this little bit of pencil line in there, so I can go around that and leave a little wave or two. And then the other, when it's all dry, there's other darker highlights to put on afterwards. You're just going to paint left to right, leaving a little white highlights. Try to determine a little bit of waves if you can. So it's just not all flat. It's really hard to make these little tiny waves in here. Little tiny things, but as long as you leave a few highlights, it'll look like it. It's possible that we'll need to make this wave even darker, but when you put your paint down and you fill it all in, it's good to let it dry and wait and find out if you really need to make something darker or not. Wait till the end and see, because it might be just fine. I think it's dry enough on the edge of the horizon there to do this water here. We'll put down the blue color. So it's darker at the horizon and gets lighter as it comes towards us. But then as it comes towards us, you can see bigger, dark areas of waves rolling in, sort of. So we'll do it like the sky, darker and then lighter. And then when it's all dry, we'll put some streaks in that'll be soft streaks, but when it's all dry, we'll go in and put a little bit more of those splashy of those dark shadows of the waves. Because I do have to rest my arm on something to get this straight line. So I'm gonna I'm gonna make a straight line. I'm going over some of the sky that went down into my horizon line because it didn't matter because it's lighter than this one is. But I just want to make sure I get that straight line. So I do the straight line first, and then I'll go next to it with more paint. Just adding a little more paint up there. You just want to try to make your line really straight. So I have the darker color at the top, and then I can tip it back up and drag it down with just water. And then when I get to the top of this wave, I have to be careful. And I get more water here. You can leave a little bit of sparkle and a little bit of white as you go across too. And then when you get down to the wave, be sure to leave that wave there with white paper. So see how I left it. And I'm just gonna, I can't really stop it. You can't really stop at this point because you want it to all be smooth, blended together while it's still wet. But I think I'm gonna just carefully do clouds like that with my arm not touching the bottom half. So the clouds, so let's look at the color. Purple, gray, maybe pink, blue.
No, it doesn't move very easily. You
So
have to, like,
you want everything we've already used except not the turquoise. No turquoise in the clouds. And the clouds, the bottom of the clouds are darker and the top of the clouds are lighter. Because I guess the sun is still there somewhere. We're looking at the moon, but the sun must be, where's the sun at this point, Celina?
the sun
It's
had
sitting
set.
on the other side.
Oh,
So that's
yeah.
set behind you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Determine where, if you have any weird spots, like the clouds are drawn in, but if you have other strange spots you want to cover, you can. So there's a couple clouds
I'm gonna stick with my
poking in from the side. And so to do a cloud, you put your color down, take your brush, clean it off, just have a wet brush, and then you can do the it's sorry, you can do either you can do this in either order. So I put the color down and then I put the just wet water as opposed to dry water, just water around it. Or you can wet the paper first where your cloud's going to go. This is probably a better way. And then drop the color in.
Ooh.
That's probably the best way. Let's do that instead.
I like lifting it up.
So you wet the paper first because that way you get soft edges where it's just water.
I like this color.
Yeah,
So I just put like a little bit of gray down. Now I'm going to add some blue to the cloud and then maybe a little purple to the cloud. And just use water to smush it around a little bit. So I don't want to work on it too much, but there you go. And you have a little cloud, right? So same thing with the biggest one. Oh, and you can add a little pink if you want also. But pink and purple, same thing, really. Okay, so the biggest one, I'm just going to paint the cloud with water first. Get it, the whole thing wet. Leaving the parts dry that are going to stay sky color. Okay, so yeah, so there you go. I painted that whole so you see the color, the shininess. So I
Yeah.
painted that whole cloud with water. And now I'm just going to drop in, not at the top of the cloud, but the bottom and the middle of the cloud. Drop in some gray and some blue, like keep switching my paint color as I go. And you just watch what's happening. And so now I'll put in a little purple. Go back to some blue. And so you can keep it darker at the bottom and lighter at the top. If you put too much color, you just take your clean, thirsty brush and lift it up. So you don't have to be so careful about it because the clouds are crazy shapes, right? So you're just putting it in. So just so that it
kind of make it how you want it.
Yeah, and it rolls up into, whoops, that's a lot of pink. Lighter at the top is the main thing, darker at the bottom, like for like a shadow. And then there's that, it's like split into two spots with a little opening in the middle. So at the top, I just add a little bit of color to the wet area. You don't go all the way to the edge of the wet area because you let the paint just go there and flow, and it ends with like a softness to it. Like always, you don't want to touch it too many times. Just enough to add the colors that you want to be in there. It might look weird to you now, but what happens is you put the paint down, you're looking at it up close, you're studying it very close up, and then when you're done, you put it up and look at it from afar, and like the next day you come back and you can see that it actually works. It looks great. Or you can see like one little thing that you can fix, you know. Okay, so the sand, we're gonna mix um uh a brownish, grayish, purplish color, right? And then a gray color, which would be, it's cobalt blue and quinacridone burnt scarlet. A little more orange makes it browner, a little more blue makes it grayer. Just like the water, we're going to go back into this water and put a little bit of darker highlights in it. So the sand would be the same way. We'll put all the sand color down, and there's some lighter spots and some darker spots. Like, for example, I feel like it looks like there's a triangle with the pointy end here going down to here of a smooth wash of color. And then underneath this bird, it starts getting like footprints and stuff. So this smooth part is where the water smoothed it out as it came in. And then here is where the water didn't hit yet. So I would like to do that kind of effect on it and make sure that that kind of shows up that way. And it really is lighter as it comes to us. So this whole corner is much lighter also. And then when it's dry, we could put a few shadows in it. And you can put a few shadows while it's wet as well. We'll wet it first. And that way, at least this part where the it's wet sand under the first bird will be nice and smooth. Okay, so you, and it also will be easier to paint around the bird and leave the whites if we wet the background first and leave him dry. So you're going to make sure you leave that bird dry. You can paint through the top bird's feet, but the bottom bird, all his white area has to stay dry.
And then maybe I'll add more color.
Okay, so I'm just going to go across with my color. And you can leave a little bit, if you leave it a little bit white at the, without touching the water, it might have a good effect. I think that looks good with slight white stripe across the water. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, so I was using a big brush, but now I have to get a little brush and just pull that color around the bird. Because my water didn't go all the way up to him. But there, if you just pull that water into around him, and then he'll show up because the sand will be dark around him. So I just want to put more color in to make it a nice, even stretch of sand here. So it's nice and smooth, looks like it was smooth, wet sand. And it even comes down a little further into a triangle like that. And in some places, it looks like it has a little bit of blue because the blue, so I'm just adding a little bit of blue on it because that makes it look more like recognizable as wet sand. And it kind of makes it grayer, but okay, so I don't want to do too much, but it'll be nice and smooth. It gets a little lighter as it comes towards us. And I'm just gonna drag it towards us here with lighter color. Not even that much lighter, but a little bit. And you can put some of the darker streaks in it at this point too, because they're not all hard edged. Some little footprints and things are darker softly. And then at the end, they can be, we can put them in when it's dry and they can be harder edged. So when you paint it wet on wet like this, it's a soft edge. And when you paint it dry, it's a harder edge like we did up here. So I'm not going to do too much. I think I'm just going to let it go and I'm going to tip it up and let the paint flow down a little bit. The sun has set behind us, so the waves are not actually this bright white in real life, but it's okay to so if you look at, because if you look at the photo, the waves are a little grayed down, but I don't really want to make them all that much grayed down. But I do think that they need a little bit more, what do you say? A little bit more color in them. So I'm taking a really light blue, and there's a couple little spots I can see. And so I just put some color down and I wet my brush, clean the water, the paint off, and just taking water and smearing it around with that, moving it around. And then I dry my brush, and because when it's drier, it's more controllable. So I'm just going to move it around a little bit drier, but I'm just adding a little bit more
to the base. Yeah.
Yeah, just so that it has more of a shape to it.
Yeah.
So the dark parts of the water are the shadow. So we're just going to put a few of those in there. Little ones here and there. Wherever you might see them on your paper, little lines going across. And then I actually feel like the darkness underneath these waves is not dark enough either. So I'm putting a little bit more under here also, like that. And I'm using some of the blue and some of the turquoise when I do it. So it just makes the wave look like it has shape. And with watercolor, the darks are at the end. So it's always, you have to wait till the end to make it really pop. So when I put the color down, I clean my brush off and dry it off a little bit and then spread it around if I want it to be softer. And then at this point too, if you feel like your wave itself, the top of the wave, before it breaks, like, so this is a wave coming up and it's breaking on this side, but it didn't break yet over here. So the very top might have a little bit of white on it, but it also might have like a darker ridge to it at the very top as it's like almost starting to curl over towards us.
Mhm.
Okay, so that then up here is where you have more of them. And you want to look at you want to look at the picture to as your guide, but you also want to look at whatever happened on your painting. Your painting might have already determined where you're going to put your darks and lights. And you want some highlights at the bottom half of this ocean here, but not at the top half. See how the top has smoother? It's because it's further away and all those little lines are much smaller. So it smooths out in your vision. So you figure out, okay, where is about the halfway line, and that's where you can make some of those splashy kind of waves going across.
That really helped. When you said that about the darks and I started adding that, I felt a profound difference.
Good, yeah. Yeah, these splashes make it look like the ocean. So, because it's not a smooth lake, it's a rough water ocean, and that's going to have a lot of that splashy lines and stuff in it. So I put the paint down, I clean my brush off, I dry it off, and then I go next to it to see if to make some edges softer. So you maybe make your bottom edge of your darker softer and your top edge leave it. So if you put paint down and then get water on your brush and go next to it, it softens the edge.
Mhm.
So I'm not even going to really do too many of those in the background. I'm just going to let it be flat and just have some of these lines in the foreground. And not even the same all the way across, like you can see in the picture even. There's longer, thicker ones on the left, little skinnier ones on the right. And that way it's not all the same boring thing. It's like a lot of different stuff happening. It'll dry lighter. So if you feel like you got too dark or something, it'll dry lighter. But when you're putting your second layer on top, it's not like your first layer. It is going to be darker. So your second layer, you want to be lighter touch because like I always say, it's like, you know, if you have stained glass, two pieces of colored glass, like say you have a piece of colored glass and you put another piece of colored glass on top, the two glasses are the same color, but when you put them on top, it gets twice as dark.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's happening with your paint too. When you put another color on top of a color, it's going to be darker than when you put it on top of the white. Center of interest of your painting is where the darkest meets the lightest. So this is really the center of interest. And then it's nice to have this white moon up here to bring your eye around. But mine's dry enough, so I can put some not super wet. My brush isn't super wet, but I'm just having some color on it, and I'm just going to put a few, and they're going diagonal. I want them to be diagonal because it just makes them more interesting. We have a lot of straight across lines here.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have a different direction. And the photo has it that way too. That's what makes it a good photo. It has a lot of good things going on. So not all the same shape or size or darkness. Have a lot of variation. And the bigger one actually seems like he already has something, but just a line on the sand or something under the bird would be good.
Yeah.
And that's it. So who wants to show us their painting? Okay, that looks good. Yeah, look at that. You have a good sky too.
I think my clouds are too heavy, but that's beside the point.
I don't think.
I like my sand.
Yes.
Flawless.
I like
And
the
I
sand
like the
too. It
And
looks
I don't think your clouds are too heavy either. I think they're good.
Guy to
And I
do
like-
more. I want more definition, but I felt good as soon as I started adding those darks to the
Yeah.
beneath the waves. I thought that added to it, and I love the pink glow that we were able to achieve.
And your other bird flew away.
Yep, only one bird, one lonely little bird.
Wow, you guys, well done. I think everybody was successful.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you, great class.
That was fun.
Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you for the photo, girls.
Yes,
Oh,
nice
yeah.
job.
Oh, yeah.
That was good.